Fundamentally, the DMK ideology has always been about Hindu hatred. They may try to tell you that there is a difference between Sanatan Dharma and Hinduism, like some say that there is a demarcation between Hinduism and Hindutva. But frankly, what they want, quote, is to eradicate, as DMK leader said, is Hinduism itself. It is also a reminder that contrary to what some may say, Hinduism is very much under attack and in danger in India if we don't pay heed to such designs. Yes, it has survived 1,000 years of such an onslaught, but that doesn't happen without being aware of the danger and the threat in itself. And it is also a reminder that there is no such thing as secularism in India. It is but a euphemism for minoritism and anti-majority politics. Because a statement like this, made for any other religion, would have our Indian seculars beating their chests even to international community. A statement like this for any other religion would have invited suo motu action by Indian courts and requirement for increased security for the provocateur. A statement like this for any other religion would have invited much louder, unequivocal criticism by those who call themselves seculars and claim to uphold secularism in India. Interestingly, this statement has tied the India Alliance partners in a knot. They don't know where to look. They don't know where to hide. Some are criticizing Udhyanidhi's statement, some are backing. The most profound is the confusion within the Congress party. But fundamental is the question today, is this the true face of seculars in India, and is their hypocrisy louder than ever before? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. But as I mentioned, the statement has put Congress in a fix, given that it is not only a member of the new opposition bloc along with the DMK, but also partners with the ruling party in Tamil Nadu. While some Congress leaders openly batted and defended Udhyanidhi's statement, others have called it wrong, but none have been able to condemn it in the strong words that come on other occasions. Listen in.
वो उनकी व्यक्तिगत राय होगी, हम उससे सहमत नहीं।
Any religion that does not ensure that you have the dignity of being a human being is not a religion according to me. So it's as good as a disease.
देखिए, सनातन धर्म, सनातन परंपरा भारत की संस्कृति का हिस्सा है। शायद भाषा की भावना को ना समझते हुए किसी व्यक्ति ने कहा होगा, मुझे जानकारी नहीं, पर मैं एक भारतीय के तौर पे आपको कह सकता हूं कि सनातन परंपरा भारत की संस्कृति का हिस्सा है और वो युग युगांतर तक रहेगा।
एक्चुअली हमारा व्यू वेरी क्लियर है, सर्वधर्म भावना समभावना, सर्वधर्म समभावना is the Congress ideology. But you have to understand, every political party have their own freedom to tell their views. We are respecting everybody's beliefs.
The Congress today saying we respect everybody's belief, but are some beliefs also to be respected? Is that the line that they're taking today? Because this is not the first time that the DMK has made derogatory statements against Hinduism. Several times in the past, their leaders have also been saying this. So of course, this is one of the most direct and one of the most blatant attacks that has come in from a DMK leader, Udhyanidhi Stalin, saying we have to eradicate Sanatan Dharma, not just fight it or counter it or change it. Last year in September 2022, DMK MP A. Raja had said that you are an untouchable till you are a Hindu. Basically, they reduce all of Hinduism to just one aspect, which is casteism, and there's no defense of casteism, but they use that as a means to attack the entire faith. And Hinduism, we all know, is as large as the ocean, as Mahatma Gandhi said. Current Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin, in February 2019 had said that even Brahmin priests can't understand Sanskrit shlokas. One wonders what he meant by that. But in the same speech, he also said that the smoke from Yagan makes even the bride and groom cry. Both of them sit on the floor for hours while everybody else sits on a chair. I'm guessing this is, of course, in response to the Hindu marriage ceremony. In other words, mockery of Hindu rituals. Now, one wonders how this is criticism of casteism, is that's what they're fighting. DMK leader, founder, in fact, Karunanidhi himself had made a statement in 2009 that he will always remain a critic of Ramayana till the end of his life. Okay. In September 2007, he had also challenged L.K. Advani at that time for a debate on Ramayana, saying that Valmiki himself called Lord Ram a drunkard. Now, the problem with such criticism is that in India, this criticism of any other religion is not allowed. And hence the hypocrisy again. In India, in fact, even quoting scriptures has put people's lives in danger just because they dare to do so and question other religions. So that leads us to the big question we're asking today. With this attack on Sanatan Dharma and the fact that most opposition parties who give themselves the tag of being secular are unable to take this on in unequal terms, is this not the biggest case of the hypocrisy of secularism in India and why it doesn't work? We'll forward with our guests.
சிலவற்றை நாம் ஒழிக்கத்தான் வேண்டும், எதிர்க்க முடியாது. கொசு, டெங்கு காய்ச்சல், மலேரியா, கொரோனா இதையெல்லாம் நம்ம எதிர்க்கக்கூடாது, ஒழித்து கட்ட வேண்டும். அப்படிதான் இந்த சனாதனம்.
सनातन धर्म का के ऊपर भी चोट पहुंचाई जा रही है. इन्हीं के गठबंधन के लोगों ने, डीएमके ने चोट पहुंचाई है और इस पर कांग्रेस चुप्पी साफ कर बैठी हुई है.
भारत की सभ्यता को, भारत की मूल आस्था को, सनातन धर्म को यानी हिंदू धर्म को अपमानित करने में जैसे मानो एक कंपटीशन शुरू हो गया है.
I do not find anything wrong in what he said. One has to fight Sanatan. We are fighting Sanatan.
सनातन धर्म एक स्थापित जीवन शैली, धार्मिक भाव है और उसका संपूर्ण सम्मान होना चाहिए.
I will definitely stand against it and I will face any illegal activities, action, and I will never step back from whatever I say.
Let's go across to the guest joining us. Guru Prakash Paswan is from the BJP. Tehseen Poonawalla is political analyst, leans towards the Congress party. Also, Professor Chandan Gowda is Professor, Institute of Social and Economic Change. Desh Ratnam Nigam is lawyer and political analyst, leans towards the RSS. I should announce that Congress and DMK have refused to be officially part of this discussion. Again, I wonder why. Tehseen, why is it that the Congress is shying away from condemning Udhyanidhi Stalin's comments? Why is it that the Congress is speaking in two voices? In fact, appallingly, some of their leaders are actually backing what Stalin has said.
Shivani, at the onset, thank you, and I'm grateful for having me on the show. And I'm appalled at the statements Mr. Stalin is making. For one, let's for a minute leave the moralistic argument aside. Just for a second, let's leave the moralistic argument aside. It's terrible. You cannot call people mosquitoes or a way of life, malaria or dengue or corona. It's terrible. And if the thing was reversed, let's assume Guru Paswan, who's a very dear friend of mine, but represents the BJP, said the same about an Islamic way of life. What would we say? It's wrong. How can this be accepted? So it's terrible that this has been said. But let's look at this politically apart from this. Mr. Stalin, whose only claim to fame is being the chief minister's son, who is the grandson of Karunanidhi and a grandson of Karunanidhi, is talking about privilege. Can you imagine politically what suicide is this? And look, I'm a Congressman.
The problem though is, Tehseen, that exactly suicide. This politics of the DMK has been rewarded in Tamil Nadu. I don't want to get into that. But fundamentally, politically, why is parties like the Congress party unwilling to take them on? Why are they in alliance with the party which is so rabidly anti-Hindu? Does that question not go to the Congress party?
It does, and I'm stunned. Because I support the Congress. I go out of my way to defend the Congress. And Rahul Gandhi ji, who's my idol, told us that he's a Janyudhari. Yeah. So is Rahul Gandhi ji privileged? Second, Rahul Gandhi ji said कि मैं नफरत के बाजार में मोहब्बत की दुकान खोलने आया हूँ. which is great. Then Mohabbat ki dukaan has to open with conversation. Every way of life must evolve, must require reforms, dialogues. But that should happen through a political process or through a legal process or through consultation. You can't call people mosquitoes, dengue, COVID. I'm again saying, Shivani, let's say if this was for Christians or Sikhs, what would we say? We would say this is bigotry. It's not right. Supreme Court has called this as hate speech. In my case, how is it accepted if you call people from the Sanatan Dharma? Does the Congress not have people from the Sanatan Dharma?
So that brings me to the question that I'm asking today, Tehseen. You are a supporter of the Congress party, what it stands for. The Congress party claims to be the biggest votary of secularism in India. They believe secularism in India exists because of the Congress party and not because of parties like BJP. Explain to me, how is this secularism?
This isn't. That's what I'm saying.
Then why is our Indian politicians so weak? If votes all they care for, they cannot stand up for Sanatan Dharma in a country like India, Bharat?
Forget in a country like India. Tell me, Shivani, and you're a very reasonable person. I also know you on a personal level. Which minority will be happy by you calling Sanatan Dharma, people for calling Sanatan Dharma mosquitoes or malaria? They don't get happy with this. So this isn't even appeasement. I mean, people who are minorities from any caste or religion don't get happy when you do this. They are not excited that you're doing this. For example, Mr. Paswan comes from a minority background. I know him personally. He's from a Paswan background. Will he get happy? No. This is not something to be happy about. What are you celebrating?
Yet it works
it is
for the
moralistic.
DMK. No, forget the moral argument. Yet for DMK, it works in Tamil Nadu. It's a fascinating story and study, which is a very devout state, mind you. Tamil Nadu is a devout Hindu state. Why it works there is a fascinating story. But I want to go across to Professor Chandan also. How is this acceptable when all of these politicians claim to fight for secularism and they claim that they are secularism? I use that word deliberately because obviously claiming to be secularism doesn't mean you actually uphold its tenets. But this is as rabid anti-Hindu commentary and speech as is possible. Don't you think that this is exactly what invites statements from the other side as well?
It's a very complex matter. See, just to set the record straight, the AIDMK, with which the BJP is close to, is also an inheritor of the same stance on how Hinduism has to be seen. So you have to put both parties on the dock if you're interested in pushing it in that angle. Please remember that Periyar built a movement which later split into DMK and the AIDMK, right? And they both are inheritors of the same legacy, reflected in popular cinema, popular songs for over a century. 2 years from now, it will be 100 years of the self-respect movement. Be that as it may, I don't think, you and I, might have a right to feel, angry or, or offended even at what he has described it. But unless we have the maturity to understand that he has the right to be angry in his own terms, because
is it right? No, I get that. I have no problem in calling out casteism. I will join that cause. How is eradicating a religion a just cause?
I think the mosquito corona comparison is nothing compared to what others have compared it to in the last 100 years.
So what? That doesn't mean I can't criticize it today.
What's on the street is tougher.
No, but Chandanji, you're not understanding. What people have gotten away with in the past is hardly my concern today. I am still going to criticize Udhyanidhi Stalin, not by the standards that the DMK has set it for itself, but by the standards that Indian politicians want for everyone.
Shivani, if you are in the receiving end of Hinduism, you have a right to be critical in your own way.
Absolutely, you do.
Civil. We can't dictate the terms of criticism.
No, this is not criticism. Mr. Gowda, you're getting into that very delicate line of what is criticism and what is hate speech. And I think this qualifies as hate speech, not so much as criticism. We've had ample criticism of Hinduism in this country. We've had unending criticism of Hinduism in this country. And Hindus are the most accepting of all criticism. And I accept the ills of Hinduism. But I, for one, am not going to carry the guilt that only Hinduism has ills. I'm sorry to say, politicians like Udhyanidhi Stalin will never open their mouth about ills in any other religion. I'm calling out their hypocrisy.
They're speaking as insiders to a religion.
They're not insiders. What insider is Udhyanidhi Stalin? What is his upbringing? What is his privilege?
No. See, please remember they are criticizing a religion, not the religious followers. There's a distinction.
No. In the statement that Mr. Stalin has made, this is why I called it, no, I'm sorry, this is why I called it refreshing at the start of my show, because the statement that Mr. Stalin has made is not criticism, and it is not hiding behind this ruse that we are fighting the ills of Hinduism. He has said it as openly as possible. We need to eradicate Sanatan Dharma itself. Sanatan Dharma stands for a lot of things, and this country wouldn't be as secular and open if it wasn't for Sanatan Dharma. He better accept that as well.
Yes, but you and I have the rights to read it that way.
No, it's not a reading, it's fact. Mr. Gowda, Mr. Gowda, my aim is not to fight with you, but it is not a reading, it's a fact. History is bearing fact to this. We cannot erase that history either. And we cannot condemn a religion only by some ills. And like I said, I dare them to open their mouth about ills about any other religion in this fashion. But Mr. Guru Prakash is... No, okay, finish. What is it that you want to say?
No, Shivani, I was only saying we have the rights to read Hinduism in the way we are doing. And if you are at the receiving end, they have the rights to read it the way they do.
I have no problems with that, Mr. Gowda, but calling for eradication of a religion is not reading of a religion. Calling people who follow a certain philosophy as mosquitoes is not reading of that religion. Please understand, that's the limited point I'm making. I'm all for criticism, and there is only criticism of Hinduism in this country. But we'll accept that. Tessin, you wanted to come in very quickly, then Guru Prakash.
Just very one point. In our country, the religion that's seen most reforms has been Hinduism. You can't take away from that. For example, and I'll end here, Bhagwan Ram or Bhagwan Krishna were not born as Brahmins. They were born as Kshatriya or as a Yadav. And in fact, Bhagwan Ram killed a Brahmin, Ravan. But we still worship them. So let's not say that this is the most reforms that happen in the Hindu way of life. That
and
does
yet
not
it gets attacked the most. You know, the appalling thing is this. It keeps getting attacked in the most basest of manners. This is not criticism, I'm sorry to say.
It's dehumaning. You can't call people
It's dehumanizing of Hindus who follow Sanatan Dharma, and dehumanization is categorized as hate speech. Let Mr. Guru Prakash also come in, then I'll go across to Desh Ratan Nigam. Guru Prakash, why is it that only Hindus have to take this kind of speech?
A very warm good evening to you, Shivani, and all my fellow panelists. And let me start by appreciating my dear friend Tessin, who has shown some spine. And I think it's very important that on issues like this, we need to be dispassionate, we need to be objective. But we need to also understand one thing, Shivani, that it is not in isolation that Mr. Udhyanidhi Stalin has spoken. It's a pattern. Consistently, if you see, the leadership of India Alliance time and again have said the same thing. Swami Prasad Maurya, what has he said about Hindu Dharma? Mr. Satish, the Pradesh Congress Committee Adhyaksh in Karnataka, Hindu ek ganda shabda hai. And let's not go into what the senior leadership of Congress Party, Samajwadi Party, Rashtriya Janata Dal have spoken on different occasions. But what we see here is a pattern to insult the sentiments of more than 80-85 crore Hindus on a daily basis. We have to understand that only 24 hours before in Mumbai, they could not get a consensus on leadership. They could not get a consensus on Niti, but they have a consensus on their policy. And their policy, the policy of India Alliance, is defame and insult Hindu sentiment.
Okay, but can I come in here? Guru Prakash, you have to be fair where you have to be fair. There are members of the India Alliance, including Mamata Banerjee just a short while ago, who has condemned this statement. So I think we should be fair and allow for those statements when they do come in. There are leaders of the Congress party who disagree with others. Of course, the Congress is sending out a very confused mixed signal here. But there are some other members of these alliances, including, for example, Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena, who's also called out this statement. So let's be fair.
No, Shivani, you are fighting election as an alliance. Is there a collective pressure by the India Alliance? There is no collective pressure by the India Alliance. There is no notification by the India Alliance. These are their standalone opinions. But we have to understand that you can no longer attack. This is the most brutal assault. And I was listening to the Professor Sahab, and since the morning, I've been part of various debates. They are saying कि उत्तर में सनातन अलग है, दक्षिण में सनातन अलग है. What sort of preposterous argument is this? If Uttar ka Sanatan is different from Dakshin ka Sanatan, why a Shankaracharya who was born in Kerala built mathas across the country? उत्तर में भी, दक्षिण में भी, पूर्व में भी, पश्चिम में भी. What sort of arguments are you giving, sir? Please, and I request with folded hands, do not make this fault lines on the basis of language, caste, Sanatan, and every other day. We are looking at fault lines being built. But we have to understand that in the name of social justice, what Mr. Stalin has said, you are a product of privilege. And what have you done for the sake of social justice? A Hindutva abiding government. For the first time, Shivani, we saw an Adivasi ki beti in the last 75 years reaching the highest constitutional office in the country. This is social justice. This is inclusion. Not you becoming chief minister, your father becoming chief minister, your grandfather becoming chief minister. Please don't use the idea of social justice to attack our beautiful Sanatan Sanskriti. Mahatma Gandhi, for God's sake. Mahatma Gandhi said, I am a Sanatani Hindu. महात्मा गांधी ने कहा था मैं सनातनी हिंदू हूं. राम मनोहर लोहिया in his essay Ramakrishna and Shiv, he said कि भाई हमें रामायण पे प्रसंग करना चाहिए. There are so many instances, sir. It was Prime Minister Nehru who installed the symbol for the first time in the parliament. There are so many examples from the
some
past,
have said,
but regardless of them.
No, Guru Prakash, some have said that actually a statement like this can only come from someone who doesn't understand the ethos of Sanatan Dharma. In fact, many political leaders, including Mamata Banerjee, have said that I don't understand where they're coming from. Some Congress leaders have said maybe they don't have an understanding of what they're talking about. Actually, they're telling Udhyanidhi Stalin, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I'm sorry to say, sometimes you're so privileged in life that you haven't seen the real world. And certainly Udhyanidhi Stalin cannot claim that he has come from the very bottom to understand what ills Indian society or Hindu society faces. But Mr. Gowda, let me come to you. Mr. Nigam, just give me 2 minutes, allow you for your patience. Mr. Gowda, I want to come to you. You know, fundamental, the fact is this. Anti-Brahmanism is a ruse that DMK has been using for a long time for basically politics which is anti-Hindu. And this statement kind of makes it clear. Because there is no distinction between Sanatan Dharma and Hinduism. I frankly don't think there is any difference between Hindutva and Hinduism either. But I leave that aside. But attacking Sanatan Dharma, that goes a step too far. And that shows that it is not about anti-Brahmanism or anti-casteism at all.
Swani, one could say Sanatan Dharma and mean different things by it. One could say Hinduism is just fine the way it is, no problem. This is one camp. And the Gandhi version, which my co-panelists referred to, is a Sanatan Dharma that is constantly self-correcting, self-improvising, okay? But there's another camp that doesn't think Sanatan Dharma can exist without caste ever. So they reach Sanatan Dharma. You had 3 different camps and many more camps, and we'll need to live with all of them. We can't say one camp shut down, we'll live with 2 camps. That is, because we need, Hinduism has evolved and grown because of such challenges from inside and from outside.
Mr. Gowda, I do not disagree with anything you're saying. I do not disagree with anything you're saying. I think you're accepting the fact that there are various ways to look at it. There is a conflict, which is good. Conflict can only exist when actually people are willing to debate and criticize. So Hinduism is willing to do so. My objection is purely this, that this is not in the realm of criticism. This is a sitting minister of an elected government talking. This is not even about any ordinary leader saying, and even if it came from an ordinary leader, it would be unacceptable speech.
But like I'm saying, this rhetoric has a 100-year-old history. There are 2 books that have looked at Dravidian political rhetoric. It is exactly like this. The quotes that you pulled out from his father and from the son are cliched quotes. You've heard them.
Is it not wrong?
Nobody called Tamil filmmakers to the station, the TV station, to call them up like this. I'm not saying we should accept it now. I'm only saying we can't be too literal about this. There's a cultural history to this thing, and you're right to say, come on, you can't speak like this, and give them a chance to explain themselves.
Yeah, we've given him a chance to explain himself, in fact. He spoke to us, he stood by his statement, and he said he's willing to take it on legally. I don't think legally he will have any issues, but my point is fundamentally this. Societally, socially, politically, there have to be consequences and costs to statements like this if you want to be called true secular in a country like this. Desh Ratan Nigam.
Shivani, first thing we have to look at the timing. Immediately after the Mumbai meeting of the ... Alliance and then G20 coming, and India is projecting itself in a manner which some of the political parties do not like. Hence, you try to project India in a bad light and try to gain publicity. That's one aspect of it. Yes, you can come to know about a person's behavior, character, and home as well. And in this case, Mr. Stalin has established himself that his home is a gutter. I won't say beyond that because I'm quite angry. I can use other words as well. Now, secondly, they probably do not know the pristine nature of Sanatan Dharma. It's evolutionary, it's forward thinking, it is scientific, inquisitive. None of the other religions allow that because there is a book, you have to follow a book. Here we are allowed to do that. Self-criticism is also allowed. But what they have done is, as somebody pointed out, dehumanizing it. And apart from dehumanizing it, you are nonchalant. You still do not want to apologize. That means it has been done under a plan. There is a clear plan, and that plan is that we'll experiment with such kind of dehumanizing Sanatan Dharma. Let us see the reaction. So you will find in certain states where it benefits the India alliance, they will use these kind of languages wherever they want, and in other places their leaders will say, no, this is wrong. So this what we have seen, Janeudharis coming, suddenly you becoming a Hindu before elections, you start going to the temples. It's the same pattern which is going on. It's nothing new. Therefore, let us be very clear, and legally speaking, this man can be hauled in court, and there are various sections under the IPC where he can be tried and put behind bars.
You know, interestingly, Deshratna Nigam, just recently and justifiably, the Supreme Court said, you took suo motu cognizance of certain hate speech, alleged hate speech, and they asked state governments to file complaints even when there are no complainants.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
State governments are now mandated by the Supreme Court to file suo motu complaints of hate speech.
Absolutely.
We wonder whether the court will also take cognizance of this when they do so for other hate speeches.
I'm also wondering.
Yeah.
And that wondering is quite questionable.
You absolutely. And you know, you made an interesting point about telling people about what Sanatan Dharma is. You know, I frankly do not want to get into that argument. I am not going to defend Sanatan Dharma. I am not going to try and teach them Sanatan Dharma. If they wanted to know, they will know. They don't want to know. And it's not my job to defend it. My job is simply to say that you cannot attack a religion like this. These are standards set by yourself. And you cannot make hate speech like this. These are standards set by yourself. So hold yourself to your own standards. It's not my job to defend Sanatan Dharma to them. That's why I don't want to get into it. Yes, Tessin, very quickly, I'll take final comments from all of our guests. Tessin, 30 seconds.
Very quickly, this argument that these arguments were made by Periyar sir or by Ambedkar sir. Periyar sir and Ambedkar sir were self-made men. They were not dynasts. They didn't come from privilege. A, so it's wrong to compare dynasts to them. B, more importantly, listen, just reverse this, Mr. Gowda, and I'm asking you, let's say a Muslim man said, who's fighting against burqa for whatever reason, whether he likes or dislikes it, says all of the burqa is like malaria, dengue, and all of this should be eliminated like mosquitoes. You, Mr. Gowda, and I would say it's not right. It's wrong. This is the same argument. You cannot compare people to animals. It's not right. You can say we need to talk about caste. There are privileges. We got to discuss it. That's the way to do it. There is a tone and tenure to do it. Every night I argue with Mr. Paswan on TV. Nobody goes after me. But you cannot come here and call people animals. That's not right. And what's not right for one group is not right for the other group. There cannot be a justification.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the point that you know, Guru Prakash, has become very convenient for people to take one thing out of such a broad, vast, all-encompassing philosophy like Sanatan Dharma and condemn it using just that one stick. But you know what I find appalling is if you want to fight evils, there are evils all around us in all faiths. But they will not open their mouth and reduce any religion to just one ill that may be part of that religion.
No, absolutely, Shivani. And I think this is a product of a long-term politics of minority appeasement. And I think as a party, as an individual, we have certainly disagreed with that. Like, you build a culture, you build a discourse around minority appeasement, and then such an atmosphere happens. In 2007, for instance, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh says, "Is desh ke sansadnon pe pehla hak Musalmanon ka hai." I can give you 100 such examples. Shah Bano verdict. the Somnath temple renovation. So the atmosphere is formed. In Bihar, for today, the notification came that during Chhath Puja there will be no holidays. In Bihar today, in parts of Purnia, there are holidays on Friday, and you have no courage to question that. So you cannot make a football out of it. You cannot build your arguments for the sake of your own convenience. On a daily basis, Indie Alliance leadership from different political parties are insulting the sentiments of more than 85 crore Hindus, but this is absolutely unwarranted and absolutely unacceptable.
Well, we'll wait and see what political consequences there will be. For long, people have gotten away by criticizing Hinduism in manner that they will never criticize any other religion, while also claiming that all religions should be respected and they are seculars. So I think it is a given now that this whole term secular in itself under question in India. It's the most warped form of secularism that exists anywhere in the world. But I'll leave it at that. I do thank our guests for joining us for our first debate. Coming up on the other side, we are discussing One Nation, One Election panel debate that has intensified. Remember, the Congress party is now mulling to skip the upcoming special parliament session if it only debates simultaneous polls. Is it a way of running away from the debate? We'll get to that in just a bit.
It was not clear whether it was scheduled or not. But we know that with the absence of Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, it looks like the bloc, the G20, is increasingly divided on the many issues around the world. We have heard Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova clearly saying that G20 is being dominated by G7 plus grouping and their agenda, and they do not want G20 to become hostage of these issues, and they have said that they will push for global and more consensus agenda, and they will support India's G20 presidency as well. In fact, the Russian side has also said that they will rely on the BRICS member countries in case G7 try to push for their agenda. We have also seen Canadian President Justin Trudeau recently expressing disappointment that Ukrainian President Zelensky is not being invited to G20 summit level talks. India had made it very clear, long time back that G20 will remain an agenda that will be focused on developmental issues, global issues of finances, climate change, or SDG goals, or women empowerment, or social justice, things that has been the core of G20 grouping, and it will not be given priorities to certain conflicts or the conflict that is happening in one part of the world. And so the security issues is something that G20 has ideally not been discussing, and India did not allow this to become a stage for Ukrainian issues to be discussed. While the after effects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, like food security, energy security, that will of course remain be a part of major agenda that Indian presidency of G20 is going to discuss around. Prime Minister Modi will also be likely having a dinner hosted for President Biden. We know that recently Prime Minister was in Washington, where the Biden family had hosted a very special dinner as a state guest for Prime Minister Modi. And recently Prime Minister Modi was also in France to attend the Bastille Day as the chief guest of the Bastille Day celebration. And when President Macron will be in Delhi, there could be a possibility that Prime Minister Modi will have something special or some special arrangement for him over a lunch or something. Besides, there will be several bilateral meetings with world leaders. Prime Minister is going to Jakarta on 6th and 7th, where he'll be having a meeting with Indonesian President Joko Widodo. And when the President will be arriving back in Delhi to attend G20 summit level talks, there is scheduled to have a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Indonesian President, because Indonesia remains the part of Troika, that is Indonesia, India and Brazil, who will be hosting the G20 summit level talks next year. Lula da Silva will be coming for to represent Brazilian side, the president of Brazil. He just had a meeting on the sidelines of BRICS summit level talks in Johannesburg, also with Prime Minister Modi, and we'll have to see how those meetings will take shape when the frequency of the leaders talk will increase, and how India, Brazil, Indonesia and other part of the South, global South will become a more stronger voice in the context that they want to have some solid reforms at multilateral platforms around the world, especially in United Nations. So while G20 will remain focused on many agendas of development, issues of multilateral reforms, climate change, global security, food security is something that India is going to push for, social justice. women empowerment is something also that Prime Minister Modi had talked in the past to be talked about at the G20 Summit level talks. With all the leaders congregating in Delhi, the issues will be discussed, and one can only hope that there will emerge a consensus despite all the differences that the world leaders have had in the recent past, so that the overall progress, overall development of the world does not become hostage of one crisis happening in one part of the world. Delhi is all set to host the G20 Summit level talks when the world leaders will be arriving and discussing about the priorities, challenges, common concerns around the world, especially in the area of development and finances. President Biden of USA will be arriving most likely on 8th of September, and during those 3 days when the leadership from UK, Rishi Sunak will be coming. President Macron is also going to come on Friday most likely, and the leaders are also going to have a bilateral with Prime Minister Modi during the course of 3 days that the event will be taking place. Two presidents, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, is not going to attend the summit level talks. The Russian president has sent Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, to represent him, while today the Chinese side have confirmed that Premier Li Qiang will be representing the Chinese delegation at the summit level talks. US President Joe Biden had 2 days ago expressed hope that there will be President Xi Jinping who will be in G20 summit level talks, and probably he was looking for an opportunity to engage with the Chinese side, but now he has expressed some disappointment after he has learned that President Xi Jinping may not be coming to Delhi, and he said that he's disappointed because in the last few months we have seen a regular or frequent engagement being pushed from the US side to have an engagement with China, so that the multiple issues in trade, commerce, finances and defense be dealt with in a more pacified way, and both sides try to engage and understand each other. And we have seen several secretaries, Secretary Blinken, Janet Yellen, recently Secretary of Commerce also went to China. So there has been multiple engagements, and probably US was looking forward to have a small window of opportunity when President Biden could have had a small bilateral with Xi Jinping or the Chinese president. It was not clear whether it was scheduled or not. But we know that with the absence of Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, it looks like the bloc, the G20, is increasingly divided on the many issues around the world.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. The storm over one nation, one poll refuses to die down. Remember, on September 2, the Law Ministry named an 8-member panel to examine the feasibility of simultaneous elections in India. Now, Congress sources are indicating that they may skip the upcoming special session of Parliament called by the government if the agenda will be solely one nation, one poll discussion. Earlier, leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha from the Congress party, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, also refused to be part of this panel that he was named for, the only opposition voice in it. They said that Rajya Sabha leader of opposition from Congress, Mallikarjun Kharge, is not part of the panel, so he doesn't want to be part of the panel. He also said, interestingly, that nobody actually informed him that he's going to be part of this panel, and he only learnt it from the media. The opposition also says, and this is not just the Congress but others as well, that one nation, one election is being introduced by the BJP because it is rattled by the India alliance. Congress MP Rahul Gandhi, for example, has tweeted that this idea of simultaneous elections is an attack on India and all of its states. But take a look at how the events have panned out as far as the naming of Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary in the government panel is concerned. So on September 1, around 9:20 a.m., it came to light that the government has formed this panel, which will be headed by the former President Ram Nath Kovind. The next day, the names of the panel members also came out. So Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary was also part of it by virtue of being the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary then declines this invitation later that day, saying that he was not aware that he has been included in this panel. He opted out, also saying that Mallikarjun Kharge, his counterpart in the Rajya Sabha, is not part of it, so therefore he doesn't want to be part of it. Now, a day later, the Congress also questioned the timing of the formation of the committee. They've been questioning, of course, the re-triggering of this discussion. Earlier today, interestingly, government sources told CNN News 18 that Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary was indeed given an advance notice and he gave his consent to be on this panel that he later backed out from. Today, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary responded to that, rejecting these claims, but he also accepted, while he said that he hasn't received any call by a cabinet minister, he accepted that a PMO official called him and informed him about this panel. So the big question that emerges is that how is he claiming that he was not informed? The other big question that is also emerging is if this suits the opposition's line to decline to be part of this panel at one behest or one reason or another, because they've been wanting to be part of the government discussions on various big issues. Now that they're part of that discussion and that panel, they're refusing to join that panel. And the Congress also mulling to skip the next session of Parliament if ONOE is the big debate. So is the opposition actually running away from the debate that they keep asking for?
One nation, one election, one nation. अरे हमको क्या मिलेगा वन इलेक्शन की, 10 इलेक्शन की, 12 इलेक्शन? बताओ आम आदमी को कुछ मिलेगा वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन, वन नेशन 100 इलेक्शन, वन नेशन 1000 इलेक्शन? हमको क्या मिला?
ये मतलब बिना किसी कागजात हवा में मैं क्या बात करेंगे, और वो भी एक ऑफिसर के साथ। कानून मंत्री थे, पार्लियामेंट मिनिस्टर थे, खुद गृह मंत्री थे, प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, किसी ने बात नहीं की।
One nation, one election is good for the people of India, and the people of India realize it, but it is certainly bad for parties like the Congress. It is bad for parties that prey on weak and vulnerable people and have no interest in a prosperous India.
Want to take this across to our guest joining us. Guru Prakash of the BJP continues with us. Sujata Paul of the Congress Party is also joining us. Sujata, why is that the Congress Party is declining to be part of this panel? You have always said that you want to be involved in the decision making or the deliberations on major decisions by virtue of being the leading opposition party. Then how does it look that Adhir Ranjan is declining to be part of this panel?
Have you seen the kind of statements that are coming out from the government? That means there is going to be no discussion, no questions, everything is going to be done by the government, but as part in the parliament session that they have called. However, when we talk about one nation, one election, what is this panel about? In this panel, you have a former leader of opposition of the Rajya Sabha, but you don't have the present leader of opposition. Why? And Mallikarjun Kharge ji has obviously been kept out for various reasons because he asks all the tough questions. And in a democracy, you should always have the toughest voice. Now, there is only one person who was named, and Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, who has refused to be part of it now. And
but why?
Rightfully so. That's what I'm telling you why. One, he cannot be the only voice of the opposition, right? And if the government is going to have him over there only for the sake of convenience to give legitimacy to what they want to do, it's not going to happen this way. Because this is an issue which concerns not just national level political parties, but also state level political parties. Have they been taken on board? Have other national political parties been called...
Yes? Sujata, I get your point, but at no point has the government precluded the fact that other political representatives will also be taken on board. This is just a panel that is going to look into it. I am certain that there will be a broader discussion on the issue where others will also be allowed to put in their point.
No, India is what? India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. And let's be very clear, this is one man, one RSS, one BJP's, one agenda, one aim to change the constitution. Because they don't believe in India as the union of states.
No, you're not answering my question. How does it help the Congress party to not be part of the panel?
I'll tell you, I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
Just hang on. India believes in Bharat as the union of states. And when we are the ones who keep saying and have proved time and again that we have established democracy in this country, how can we allow the federalism to be attacked? Why should we be part
How does
of
federalism get attacked in this?
in a number of ways, because regional parties are going to be affected the most. Regional issues are going to be
Okay, but
superseded
Sujata, my
by
point
the-
is exactly this. Wouldn't it be better if Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary was part of the
Only-
panel and registered these objections officially?
No, this is formality. No, you know,
Okay.
Shivani, this is a formality.
But
and
ma'am,
only for getting-
in a parliamentary system, a lot is formality. Even a parliament
No,
session is
not just one
formality.
person. No, hang on.
We
How
do
many
work
members
on
are there in the
formalities.
panel? This panel is the first panel in the country which includes a former president of India,
So what?
Ram Nath Kovind ji. Listen, let me complete. And with all due respect to all the members of this panel, be very clear. If you look at the reference points, what is happening over there? They've already said that is it necessary to ask the states. Are you setting the agenda for what you have to do? The outcome of this panel has to be exactly what the government wants.
Okay,
That is
okay,
not
I take
something
your
that we're
point.
going
I
to be
take your
part of.
point. You are saying terms of reference is a problem. Mallikarjun Kharge not invited, problem. President Ram Nath Kovind part of it, problem. So many problems.
no.
Okay,
Not Ram Nath
but fundamentally, if this was to be a reality, it will come to Parliament. It will have to be passed by 2/3 majority. It will have to be ratified by 50% of states. It's not like this panel is going to decide this and tomorrow it becomes a reality.
No.
So we have to be pragmatic. But anyway, Sujata, you've had your time. Let Mr. Guru Prakash Paswan also come in. Could you have also invited Mallikarjun Kharge as a leader of the Rajya Sabha and other political representatives in this panel to make it a more wholesome discussion? Guru Prakash.
Shivani, I was patiently listening to the panelists from the Congress party, and I'm utterly surprised that they don't have faith in the leadership skills of Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary. He has been constantly being insulted by the Congress party, but we have to understand what are the facts suggesting, what are the historical accounts. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Personal Public Grievances, Law and Justice, which was chaired by Congress MP. I say this again. A committee, a parliamentary standing committee chaired by a Congress member of Parliament, Dr. E.M. Sudarshan Nachiyappan. This committee, chaired by a Congress parliamentarian, submitted its report on feasibility of holding simultaneous election to the House of People and the State Legislative Assembly on December 17, 2015. What did the report suggest? It said a solution will be found to reduce the frequency of elections, which relieve people and government machinery tired of frequent electoral processes. Number one. Number two, the Law Commission of India, in its 107th report, 1999, Reform of Electoral Laws, this report said the rule ought to be one election once in 5 years for the Lok Sabha and all the legislative assemblies. I have articles written by election experts. I have articles written by former election commissioner S.Y. Qureshi supporting in spirit the idea of one nation, one election.
Okay.
These are the evidences. Keep the evidences apart. Secondly, we all remember the era of policy paralysis, 2011 to 2013. What we need is a policy continuum. Today, Shivani, we are the 5th largest economy, marching towards being the 3rd largest economy. We don't need constant election, disturbing code of conduct. Every time there is an election, there is an expenditure. How do we wipe out black money? How do we wipe out criminalization of politics? These are certain ideas, issues within the framework of constitution can be discussed. But I am absolutely surprised by the insult of Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary constantly by the Congress party.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why they're not happy. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why the Congress is not happy with Adhir Ranjan in part of the panel. You can argue that you can have more than one, but this is a panel. This is just going to be representative. But Sujata, my question to you is also this. Sujata, my question to you is also this. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary also says he learnt of this from the media. Later, he says, I did get a call from the PMO. If you got a call from the PMO in, telling you about the panel, then how are you unaware? It doesn't add up. But my fundamental question to you is this. As far as the opposition to one nation, one election or simultaneous elections is concerned, you've also precluded the discussion, by claiming that this will hurt democracy, hurt federalism, this is against so and so. You have to be part of the process to debate. You can't say we're not going to debate it. That's not mature politics. And then also claim that you are not part of the debates.
Hang on. Let me first answer. that, when you're asking about Kharge ji, obviously they have a problem with Kharge ji because he's risen from a humble background. And he's risen to the post of the senior most person, the chief of the oldest party of India, and he's heading the opposition, entire opposition in the Rajya Sabha. So obviously the BJP has a problem. He's coming up with issues, so they have a problem. Who said we have a problem with Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary ji? He has decided that he doesn't want to be on the panel, and we respect that completely, and we agree to what he's saying. So where does the, this thing about disrespecting people, tell them to find out what happened to Advani ji, Murli Manohar Joshi ji, and the rest of them. Now, when you talk about policy paralysis, like my opponent here was mentioning, why can't you have a consensus on what we should do if the model code of conduct is in place and the policies are getting affected, the various projects which are continuing and they have to be stopped? That can be discussed, and a consensus can be formed.
But ma'am, discuss it as part of this panel.
Coming to it, no, that has to be discussed in the parliament. We are not talking
about
that.
But you are now
panel,
today, we are learning the Congress doesn't want to be part of the parliamentary proceedings, which is a special session called by the government, if they want to discuss one nation, one elections. So I am not understanding, how can you exclude yourself from this debate while also saying that you are never made part of the debate? Parliament mein discuss hoga to aap discuss karenge na.
See the message which has come. There will be no zero hour, there will be no question hour. What are you saying? If there is going to be no discussion and the government is going to come, and are you sure that this is going to be discussed?
No, I'm not. I'm not.
So what is going
But how has the Congress decided that if this is the sole agenda of that session, you will not join? Why?
No, I'll tell you, because these are two different issues. See, you might be, they might be wanting to change the name of India to Bharat in the constitution and bring a amendment to Article 1. You never know. You might be getting the women's reservation because women voters are the major deciding factor in elections today. But when you talk about this panel, what I'm saying is that if you're part of a panel which has already kind of predetermined the outcomes, what is the point of being there? And
I take that point. These are indeed two different issues. One, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary refusing to be a part of this panel. Second is that we are learning, it may not be the case, because we actually don't know the agenda of the upcoming special session. But the Congress feels if the government discusses one nation, one poll in the upcoming special session, then they are not going to be part of it, which again could be very immature politics, because you have to be part of those processes. But my question, Sujata, is also this, before I take a final comment from Guru Prakash also. Sometimes this criticism is growing of the opposition, including the Congress party, that you oppose anything the government suggests, even suggests. Like one nation, one election is not something that has come up from the BJP. It has come from the Election Commission in the past. It has had, of course, several leaders backing it. There is some level of consensus that this would be better for India. If you keep criticizing every discussion, even a move to discuss, by claiming that it hurts democracy, the Congress appears to be wanting to stall any and all reforms just because they happen from the Narendra Modi government.
No. This is the narrative that is being built by the BJP, and I'll tell you why. In this panel, who should have been the main body, present? It should have been the Election Commission. Is it there? The Election Commission, who should come and tell us whether this is feasible or not, whether this is possible or not. The cycle will be repeated again from what happened in '68. Of course, you know that the entire cycle of synchronization got disrupted. It is bound to happen later. But this is, a man who has done his masters in entire political science, and this has surely come from him. Because what happens to JNK and Ladakh? Just look at this. Supposing those elections don't take place now. No, hang on. Let me just complete. That means this is going to happen in 2029. Entire political science.
So there are, of course, modulations, permutations, combinations, a module that needs to be devised, and all political parties must come together for that. It's not going to happen overnight. And mind you, the Election Commission is already on record with their suggestions of how to make this one election or simultaneous election possible. What could be the modalities if a government falls mid-term, and how to bring it back to sync. I actually spoke to former CEC O.P. Rawat who explained this. The Niti Aayog has also done its own exercise. So some of these institutions have had their say. But I think what is missing now is a political consensus which could have been built by this panel. But let me go across and take your objections to Guru Prakash as well. I have a minute, Guru. fundamentally there's a breakdown of this relationship between the treasury benches and the opposition. They don't want to attend the special session. Maybe there'll be some other excuse as well. You keep them in the dark as well. The constant criticism is that they are not involved as much as they should be. How would you respond to that?
No, Shivani, I think there are enough and sufficient evidences to suggest the consultation and the process of dialogue happening in the business advisory councils. We have seen in the monsoon session as well, the leader of the House in Rajya Sabha, Mr. Piyush Goyal, Mr. Prahlad Joshi as well, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, have come out on different occasions, have asked for dialogue. We for one believe in dialogue. I think it was our leadership during the emergency movement, late Mr. Arun Jaitley, late Madam Sushma Swaraj and so many other leaders who spoke against the idea of emergency. And I think coming from Congress, it's a bit rich. But I spoke on the basis of pure facts, on the basis of evidences. There is a Law Commission of India report to which the Congress spokesperson did not respond. There is a Parliamentary Standing Committee report to which the Congress spokesperson did not respond. And it was led by a Congress parliament. It was led by a Congress parliamentarian.
Okay.
We have to understand, Shivani, that the idea of one nation, one election was in operation in India from 1950
yes,
to
but of course there are logistical
Second,
issues.
We have today,
why it fell out of cycle as well.
Last 10 seconds. Yeah, so last 10 seconds, Shivani, I think even today, the 2019 general election, we had state legislative assembly elections to Andhra Pradesh. Did BJP form government in Andhra Pradesh? Absolutely not. We had similar state legislative assembly polls in Odisha. Did BJP
Fair enough.
form
So my
government
point
in
is exactly this, that a discussion should take place and of course all concerns should be registered, but there's no point running away from that debate at one pretext or another. On that note, I thank our guests for joining us and we also leave you with a very special report ahead of the G20 Summit in the national capital. The NSG's full spectrum expertise have been deployed to deal with contingencies. Take it.
NSG is at the forefront when we talk about security arrangements here in the national capital as G20 comes near. In fact, what we are bringing to you right now is one of the elite operations by the NSG, and in fact you can see this very chopper of the National Security Guard coming from the base. In fact, in just 10 minutes, in case of any situation arising over here, what you are seeing on your screens right now is the other NSG commandos slithering down from the chopper, and in fact this is one of the teams which is making a formation to actually carry out many of the operations. A special team is led by the officer who led all the high-risk operations by personal example in the true spirit of the National Security Guard. You can see these officers coming down one by one and in fact then taking their tactical positions. In fact, these teams are equipped to carry out anti-terror operations, anti-sabotage operations, anti-drone operations and also anti-biological weapons. Once the NSG commandos slither down from the chopper, now what is happening is now the senior officials, the major general officials are actually leading the charge of these teams, and in fact now they are taking these teams to their tactical positions, and in fact they are asking them to make a formation, and you can just see now how this entire operation is being carried out. In fact, a radio message will be given to these officers. This is the elite team of the NSG who are actually leaving no stone unturned when it comes to the security amid this very G20 summit. And now teams will be going to that very area. In fact, that will be the operational area for the NSG, and in fact this is how they go inside once they get a command. The commandos of the NSG actually coming down this very from the rooftop to the operational area. This is how this entire area is being cordoned by the NSG officials, NSG commandos who are present here. These are all senior, this is the elite force we are talking about, and in fact they are all highly equipped with all sorts of operation, be it anti-terrorist, be it anti-sabotage, be it anti-drone, be it anti-bio chemical. They are all equipped with each and everything, and in fact this is what is happening. In fact, I'll also take you to this very restaurant because this is a demonstration which is being done, and in fact once this entire area, this is one of these areas which was actually kept as hostile, or one of those areas which was kept as the affected areas, if we can say. And in fact, let's show you how these officers will make an advance to these areas. This is a very interesting visual coming in to your screens. In fact, you can see how these officers will come pillar to post and in fact check each and every point where there could be a possible threat of any sort.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. On Teachers' Day, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Tuesday, we will not only celebrate the teachers, but we will also set it up for the G20 coverage here on CNN News 18. Do watch out for the G20 Town Hall 6 p.m. onwards. But let us also get you some good news on the G20 front, starting up here on The Right Stand. Xi Jinping, the president of China, and also CCP,